Good morning, subscribers. Unglued Brit here, and I'm just having a coffee, as you can see. So, right, what's been going on? Now, of course, this is the delayed Q&A that should have been Q&A Sundays, traditionally, as we all know. However, it's been a bit delayed, mainly because I've had to build a bloody shelter on the side of the building, pretty much. And I needed to build the shelter to build some shelves for my wife. So, you know, family first and all that. Gotta think about the family. So, Igor asks, what's your opinion about marriages between blacks and whites in England? Is it a common phenomenon? It happens. However, it's not as common as people think, right? It really isn't as common as people think. In fact, let me just get some data on that. So I've only got some data, and it was recorded within the 2011 census. So things could have changed, of course, in that time. But back in 2011, according to the UK census data, nearly 1 in 10 people, or 9%, or 2.3 million of the population of England and Wales, were living as parts of a couple in an inter-ethnic relationship. So basically, as the data shows us, it's around about 9% for relationships, and it's actually 4% for marriages. So married couples were less likely to be in inter-ethnic relationships. So it's still a very, very small population, right? It's like, 4% married. So it's kind of like, well, I mean, that's the data, at least from 2011. What's my opinion on it? Well, I can only say really on that one, you know, it's everyone's personal taste at the end of the day. I mean, it's a tricky one to kind of answer because everyone's got their own kind of personal taste, you know what I mean? So, you know, some people are into blondes, some people are into brunettes, some people are into, you know, I haven't really thought this answer through in any philosophical depth, actually. But it's kind of like, for me, it's like, well, you know, everyone, look, like, you never know who you're going to fall in love with, do you? I mean, love is a universal language, right? So it's kind of like, the way that I kind of see it is you just never know who you're going to fall in love with. And if such an occurrence was to occur and the people really love each other, I mean, you know, love above all else at the end of the day on that one. And I don't want to sound pansy liberal or anything, like taking civilization into account and all that sort of stuff. But however, at the end of the day, if two people truly love each other and would go to the ends of the earth for one another, I mean, what more can you say? So anyway, let's continue on. I mean, what I could say is that it's heavily promoted within British advertising. So whenever you watch the television in Britain, you would be very, very hard pressed to just find a normal straight white couple. So it's kind of pushed by the liberal paradigm that you should be in like blacks should be in relationships with whites, and you would think by watching British television that is super common. But what you usually find is, again, genetics are usually the one thing that eventually win out over anything. So, you know, despite how much they push it on British television, to be honest, I don't think they're doing a very good job of pushing such an agenda because, and I'll explain why, we are just simply genetically more likely to fall for people that look like us. It's as simple as that. It's just genetic reality, evolutionary psychology, and there are so many studies on this. In fact, there's a very good channel, Edward Dutton, the Jolly Heretic. If you haven't seen him, go and check him out. He's got a really cool channel. And yeah, he speaks about genetic reality a lot. He's a very eccentric evolutionary psychologist who is a professor in Finland, and he's done so many studies on why that is the case and other things. He's got a pretty cool channel actually to check out. So, I mean, it doesn't matter really how much they push it, because at the end of the day, evolutionary psychology tends to win the game, and it's in the data. So it's kind of like, well, most people in any given population are more likely to go with someone that's genetically similar to them in such a way that they're not too genetically similar, so that they end up, having deformed babies or anything, but they're not too far away. Because one of the problems that you actually have, and it's been studied, that basically if there's too much genetic dissimilarity, if the child ever needs any form of, say, blood transfusion or something, they might not have enough genetic match to the father, and they might not have enough genetic match to the mother. So over the space of, say, hundreds of thousands of years or what have you, it turns out that, of course, we've gotten to this point where, yes, because of how dissimilar we actually are, it is the case that, of course, if you are too far away genetically, you're gonna run into those kind of problems, basically, and there'll be health problems that are only common to a certain race, and health problems that are only common to another, and that's kind of the problem. So you kind of, from an evolutionary standpoint, want a bit more of a match, basically. So and it's just common instinctively to humanity to basically want to be with people who are closer to one another. So yeah, like I say, I'm no scientist, okay? That's not my job. So it's worth checking out Edward Dutton anyway on that sort of stuff. He's got a great channel. He can go into it, of course, in a lot more depth than I can, but that's the intro to the matter, basically. Right, we're going to go on to some questions by our lad Rip Current. So we're going to start with the first question today. Did you know that the map of Middle-earth from Lord of the Rings is actually the Russian Far East? Rip Current, I did not know that at all. In fact, I've never really looked into exactly what the data is on this. However, I've actually found some information that I find quite interesting. So, firstly, it turns out that the map is the work of a Mikhail Belemlinsky, who illustrated a translation of The Hobbit, or There and Back Again, by N. Ramanova. Right, so there's some interesting information on this, actually. So, The Hobbit is the prologue to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Both works describe Middle-earth, a mythical predecessor to our own time and place. Give or take a few ages, it is populated by men, but also elves, dwarves, orcs, and hobbits, wizards, and ents. And many other creatures seem to have stepped right out of, or rather into, a fairy tale. Tolkien found the material for his yarns in ancient myths and was inspired to spin them in order to provide England with a deep mythology he thought it lacked. The Shire and its inhabitants obviously are based on an idyllic view of the English countryside. It is less clear on which parts of the present day world. It's not less clear, it's like the West Midlands and Shropshire, it's like obvious. But anyway, if any, the other regions of Middle-earth, Midlands, we getting it now, are based. But some fun may have been had speculating. Yeah, there's no speculation. It's like, it's definitely Shropshire. In fact, I would go as far as to say the Shropshire countryside, right the way down to your Cotswolds kind of area. Yeah, that's the bit of England. Forget the rest of it. That's the Shires, okay? Right, and maybe a bit of the West Midlands. Right, I've driven around it. I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so no, I know where it is. Like, it's not bloody speculation. The Shires, Shropshire, right? Okay. Anyway, this map, however, brings something definitely Russian to The Hobbit. The map is the work of Mikhail Belemlinsky, who illustrated a translation of The Hobbit. So he illustrated a translation of The Hobbit, cool, of There and Back Again. Right, this is very interesting information, actually. So I'm just going to put a copy of the map here, right, that has been found. This is all very, I mean, goodness, I'd need to spend quite a while reading into this, to be honest, but no, it's quite interesting information. I can't kind of confirm nor deny it at this point in time, because I just don't know. But yeah, there seems to be a link that I'm just not quite aware of. But yeah, very interesting. I'll have to check that out. Thank you. So now we've got question 2. What do you think? Is homeschooling the future, or will there always be those who attend traditional schools? Good question. Good question. So do I think homeschooling will be the future? For many, yes, it will, and it will only increase. But it won't be homeschooling as in mom and dad teaching the kids because mom and dad are going to be working on Zoom while the kids learning on Zoom. This has already been a growing phenomenon in China. And we also saw it during the pandemic that, the scamdemic. That, of course, children can be taught on Zoom relatively well. So, will it be the future? And will it replace traditional schools? Well, I don't know. I think it's going to depend on each and every government's policy. You see, we're not moving into more of a globalist world. We're moving into a more nation-based, civilizational-based world. For instance, Russia's currently carving out a civilizational state at this point in time, right? So the thing is, whatever the West does is probably not going to be in line with what Russia does, and so forth and so forth. There's different civilizational states being carved out. There's the what I've described as the Great American Empire. That's going to be a bit of the civilizational state that will eventually be carved out. Then you're going to have the Ruski Mir, which is of course this part of the civilizational state. So again, it's going to depend, I assume, on each and every country's policy. Now let's take into account technology. So of course technology as it currently stands is increasingly allowing us to communicate with each other from home, and it was proven during the scamdemic that that's possible, because of course we have Zoom, we have Microsoft Teams and all of these different ways to communicate, and we can also all do our work from our laptops. Now, I don't think that it will be in the near future that traditional schools will go anywhere, because, of course, you've got to take into account that not everybody actually works at a computer. So of course, for the time being, we still have scientists doing the science that need to be in labs, we still have engineers that need to be in the factories, we still have farmers that need to be on the farm, so forth and so forth. So, the traditional school I don't think will be going anywhere until such a point where AI basically replaces all of those kinds of fields, which will eventually happen whether we like it or not, until pretty much machinery is basically doing all of those jobs that were once considered mundane and what have you. So, are we being replaced by machines? Yes. There probably will be a point in which case where, because we've been replaced by machines, people will be moving into different technical roles. But of course, you're going to need people to fix the machines and be where the machines are, maintenance engineers and so forth. So at that point, of course, we're going to need schools, But I would say there will be an increasing element of the population that will be homeschooled, definitely. Whether they'll be fully replaced, time will tell, but we know that that's the direction it will eventually go in. All right. Now, number 3, what is your stance on universal basic income? Interesting. Now, I know that it's been trialled, and I don't like it. I don't like it for myself, to be honest. I don't like to take money from the state. That's my general principle on just life. I don't like to take, and I'd rather give more than I can take, because I'm a man. I like to create and not just leech off the state, you know. So for myself, as just a 30-year-old working man, morally, I wouldn't be able to live on universal basic income. I wouldn't like the idea. I wouldn't want that idea to come into society, because again, it encourages laziness, I think, to a degree. So I can only speak from the perspective of someone from the UK, in which in the 23-24 data, 51% of households in the United Kingdom received some form of benefits. Of course, that includes universal credits, state pensions. A significant portion of the population, 9.9 million working age individuals, receive benefits, representing 22.8% of the working age population. Additionally, 13 million people above state pension age 67 or 8 over receive benefits. Right, pension, as I understand, right, but there is a significant portion of the UK population that is perfectly well and fit to go and work a job if they can go and find one. So considering that, so that means that we've got 51% of households in the United Kingdom receiving some form of benefits. What does that mean for the rest of the working population? High taxes. So, of course, this is why you have one millionaire leaving the UK every 45 minutes at this present moment in time. Because, of course, that's the thing. As soon as the government sets a principle that, oh, this is a human right, okay, you can never take that away without having an absolute detrimental impact on your way of life. Now, the United Kingdom, as it currently stands, has so many crumbling infrastructure problems that you can't just stick duct tape on it anymore. Seriously, it's a mess, like what's going on. Yet, of course, 51% of households in the United Kingdom receive some form of benefit. So despite the fact that, you know, the infrastructure's crumbling and what have you, clearly they can't afford to get it back on its feet, right? And anyone that is not just millionaires either, like a wealth creator of any sort, is taking their job abroad because they don't want to pay for other people to be lazy, basically. And I'm not talking about the pensioners. I'm excluding the pensioners. At the end of the day, they're old enough, right? But I'm talking about the working population that are absolutely fit to work, that are doing absolutely nothing. And yeah, that's kind of the thing, right? It's one of those that I just find unacceptable, to be quite honest. Because you've got healthy working people that are actually, you could say, living the life of Riley, living a dog's life in the United Kingdom on the amount of benefits that they're taking. So they're leeching off the system, right? Now, I'm not going to blame them, actually. I'm not blaming anyone. The system has been set up so that they can. So at the end of the day, the population's been handed a flute and they're playing the bloody flute, right? But the true effect is on my demographic, the type of person that will not accept anything and will work for his dinner, you know? So what would it mean if we just started giving a universal basic income to everybody? I think what it's going to mean is basically, firstly, it's going to be a high cost. So in the case of the United Kingdom, if you think the infrastructure's crumbling now, you bloody wait until that comes in, and you see how many wealth creators and job creators just take their things elsewhere, right? And then, of course, there's going to be the issue of extreme inequality, right? Because you're going to have a very large portion of the rich, right, that are already tax dodging and living in the United Kingdom, that are going to remain incredibly wealthy, whilst you're going to have this very, very lazy class of people that are doing nothing but accepting the handout, right? So, and that's kind of the thing. There will be no incentive for them to do anything better. So, for instance, in my teaching career, I continuously have to evolve and keep up with the times in order to remain competitive. I have to market in certain ways, and I've got to do certain things to ensure that I'm doing well in that career. Okay, so that's kind of the thing. Now, if you just say, oh no, don't worry about it, we're just going to give you this basic income and you don't have to do anything for it, well, and that's the thing. If I start doing better, you take it away from me. What am I going to be more incentivized to do? I'm going to be more incentivized not to do better. So it will lead to an absolute unproductive class of people that will just do enough to basically get paid from whatever they're doing, but just little enough to make sure that they're getting their universal basic income handed to them. So basically, you'll have a bunch of just poor, unproductive people across the entire spectrum for the longest time, and then just an upper class. There won't be a middle class, basically. Like that'll just be wiped clean. There'll be the lower class and the upper class. The middle class will just be destroyed, eviscerated, because it'll be the middle class that have to pay for the universal basic income. And everyone will just kind of be brought to this equal footing, and it won't matter whether you work hard or work little, you'll all be getting around about the same anyway. So yeah, I think that it's a terrible idea. Now, one thing we need to take into account is technology and technological development. Now, it may dishearten a lot of people for us to say that, yeah, a lot of us are going to be replaced by AI and what have you. And eventually, yeah, like we are going to be replaced is basically what we're saying. So if we are going to be replaced, what's that going to do for us? Well, it's basically going to mean that, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that are disenfranchised at that point. Now, it'll be when the entirety of the populations, I think into the 2030s and 2040s, that suddenly universal basic income might start looking like an attractive proposition. In fact, yeah, that'll be when it would seem okay, because if you can keep the productivity of the economy high, but you can also make sure that people's mouths are being fed. Now, if it's the case that AI is going to replace us and do our jobs 10 to 100 times better, quicker, faster, stronger, what have you, then it's basically going to mean that, of course, well, humans simply cannot compete with it, right? So you're going to have an entire population that, if you, I guess, at that point, if you don't give them something, right, then that's going to be a problem. But if AI is doing everything faster, quicker, cheaper, and everything, in theory, it should bring the price of goods to rock bottom. It'll all depend on energy policy then. If we're making almost cheap to free and abundant energy, say we're really putting nuclear power at the forefront rather than bloody wind farms and solar farms, then it's going to mean for the population that, of course, yeah, many people will be kind of put out of jobs, but things will be utterly abundant, like technological development will be abundant, everything will be kind of a lot more abundant, in theory, which means that, yes, because the productivity of the economy and the profitability of the economy is at an all-time high due to AI and technological advancement, that yes, at that point, maybe universal basic income will be an acceptable policy. But at this point in time, it's absolutely not. So it's going to depend on the rate of technological development, really. Right, we've got the next set of questions, and they are coming from, now, please forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong. Than Luong. Than Luong. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Okay, now, let's have a look. So, number one, who's your favourite YouTuber? Anything from gaming, cooking, not necessarily political commentary channel. Let me tell you. So, right, for gaming, it's got to be the ambiguous amphibian. So he plays things like The Sims, but his commentary is hilarious. The ambiguous amphibian. He's hilarious. Right, go and check him out. Cooking, I don't really have a favourite cooking channel at all. However, I can tell you my favourite chef is definitely Gordon Ramsay. Anything Gordon Ramsay generally puts out is wonderful. But it's not necessarily a YouTube channel, it's just him as a chef. I think he's fantastic. So, right, and you said not necessarily a political commentary channel, so, alright then, no problem. Yeah, because, to be honest, all of them, really, I don't have any favourites, right, especially in that field, just purely because, yeah, I just have to find, basically, like, the most reliable sources and what have you, and kind of just get a general scope from a bunch of other different points of view to kind of ponder over and think about. So there is no favourite in any case, to be honest. It's just a matter of, you know, who's putting out relevant information that I so require at any given point in time. So, right, now, let's move on to question 2. Question 2 reads, if you had any so if you were interested in video games, so I was for the longest time, but not these days because I just don't have time for it as a father and what have you, then what are your favourite video games or series? So what are they? For me, I used to love Bethesda, CD Projekt Red. So basically, you're looking at kind of, not Cyberpunk. I wasn't a great fan of Cyberpunk, but I loved the Witcher series. Witcher 3, what a game. I absolutely adored Red Dead Redemption 2. It's still, to this day, one of my favourite games. Red Dead Redemption 2. Oblivion. Love Skyrim. Oblivion, though, was my favourite. So, yeah, those are basically my favourites with that. So now it says, and what's your stance on the current gaming industry? Well, I don't buy modern games, to be honest with you. I've completely switched off from gaming because, yeah, like you say in this comment, all the race switching, inserted political commentary, uglified characters, DEI, etc. Again, if I see any game with wokery in it, a little bit like the new Saints Row, I once loved Saints Row, by the way, but yeah, as soon as I smell it, right, which you just scent it, right, I do not touch that game. I see it as poison and filthy, because the whole point of gaming is to get away from all of the crap of modernity and all of this DEI and stuff like that, to go into these mythical, wonderful universes, okay? So, as soon as I smell that some DEI hire has basically been trying to insert political ideology into a game of any sort, right, I will not buy it. I will not give them my money, and I will refuse to give that company my money ever in the future. They do not deserve it. So as soon as I smell it, I don't touch it, right? They would have to go through so much redemption for me to ever buy from that company again. Okay, I will not give them my money. So yeah, I will only ever support gaming companies, though I don't really have time for gaming these days, that just leave that out. The whole point of gaming is to get away from that rubbish. A little bit like football. Like, I used to support Liverpool, I used to support England, and yeah, like, again, they've ruined it with political DEI nonsense. So I don't like football anymore. I don't like games anymore. Well, some games I do, but it's a rare amount, right? So yeah, it's one of those. It's like, right, it kind of just pushes you out of the industry, and you don't want to play these games anymore, because again, it's like they have to insert the message into the game. And yeah, like, my take on it is, if you see it, if you smell it, if you sense it, don't buy it. You know, because yeah, like, it's, yeah, I would never touch a game like that. And we're going on to our final question, and just to check also the comments after. So we've got Oleg Zaitsev. Now, Oleg says, what do I miss most about the UK? I'll tell you what I absolutely miss, Oleg. Well, firstly, it's got to be my family, okay? Family first. Miss my mother, miss my father, miss my brother, miss my extended relatives, miss going to them, with them to the pub, miss the barbecues. Yeah, like, you know, at the end of the day, I've started my own family now, right? And it's kind of, it's like being part of a tree, right? So you are a branch that's part of the tree, but there are other branches that are starting to grow off. So I do miss them entirely. I do, of course, stay in touch with them on a very frequent basis, so that really is good. But yeah, you always, yeah, family's in your soul, man. Family's in your soul. But what do I miss other than family? You know, I miss driving around in a £100 car. That's not weight, that's pounds as in the currency. So I miss just driving around in a cheap runaround car, and driving and seeing how far I can take it, and driving all the way around the United Kingdom, turning my car into a tent, sleeping in that car, and then waking up in the morning, cooking on the side of the road, and thinking, what am I going to do today? Shall I go to a waterfall? Shall I go and swim in a lake? I don't actually miss the UK. I miss Wales. I miss Wales big time. I miss the old England and Wales, right? Like the old, beautiful, picturesque countrysides that have been tamed and looked after for thousands of years, right? Like, there's this ancient blood memory that I feel, I sense when I am in a place like Wales. And you kind of, again, when you're in these places, you sense that they have just been tamed and nurtured and looked after for millennia, it seems. Just driving around England, Wales, especially Wales, you know, you really do feel that there is a magic in the soil, right? There is this magic. It's not in places like London or Birmingham. Any form of idyllic magic has just been ripped out of that place. Like, there is no soul in there is no soul at all in the cities of the United Kingdom anymore. The soul has been ripped out and spat on, right? But when you just drive out to the countryside, where there is still a portion of Britain that is still Britain, right? A portion of these quaint little English country villages that seem to be untouched and no one's touching them, you certainly see what was a glimpse of the beautiful past that we once had. Just walking around the countryside and just driving around the wonderful A roads of Britain certainly gives you an appreciation of what we once had. And you can still find glimmers of it, and that's what's beautiful, and that's what I used to go on the hunt of. I used to literally just get in a car, camp on the side of the road, just go from mini corner shop to mini corner shop, just keeping my stomach just filled up so that I could carry on my journeys and just find the most beautiful, magical places that you could ever imagine. And I tell you, there is nothing just more idyllic. And that's kind of the thing. I've been in Moscow now, and Moscow Oblast region really, for around about the space of, I think, 2.5 years now at this point. No, two and a bit years, something like that. And that's the thing, I haven't had the opportunity to buy a car and find the magical lands of Russia yet. So I miss that about the UK, but I'm looking forward to finding the magical lands of Russia outside of the cityscapes, the grand open wildernesses that are of course abundant in Russia. So yeah, I would say for me, that's what I do miss. It's mainly adventure, but you know, adventure and beauty can be found everywhere, right? It's just that I really took advantage of it when I was in Britain, whereas I haven't started driving in Russia yet. So it's only a matter of time until I do buy a car and I start going adventuring around with my family, because of course I'm a married man now, I have a daughter, and I'm going to just wait until my daughter grows up a little bit more, and there is going to come a point where I just wake them up at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, get in the car, we're driving. And they're going to go, where? And then I'm going to say, I don't know, but we're going in a straight line, so pack your things. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to taking my family on these wonderful, wonderful adventures. Just to enjoy the nice rolling hills, the mountains, the waterfalls, the lakes, in which are everywhere in Russia that I have not had the benefit of enjoying yet, really does. It's a call to adventure that's in my heart that I know must wait for now. Whilst, of course, we're nurturing and raising our child into the world, it's something that will have to just be on hold for a while just yet. But there is nothing just more amazing than just going in one direction, not knowing exactly where you're going, but you're going, and you got the music on, you're in the car, you're singing, you're loving it, you're loving life, and you're just going around to these different places that you didn't even know existed. There is nothing more special than that, and that is what I miss about the UK. But one day I'm going to find that in Russia, and I know that I am. It's only a matter of time. The landscape's a little bit bigger. The country is the largest in the world. However, it's only a matter of time until I do manage to find that.